Hello. Yon took the most exciting part of what I was going to say, which is one of my biggest claims to fame is that I'm married to Emily Glisson. So we'll just say that again. She's back there doing all the work with the kids while I get to share a story with you guys. Just last week, we had a group of us meet, and we were talking about the why behind a project that's coming up here at our church. And there's things that have been going on for the last couple of decades, actually, that has brought us to this point. I wanted to share some of that story with you. As those kids are meeting back there right now, you may not realize this, but about 30% of our church are those kids. There's almost 100 kids in that building, right? And it probably feels like not too long ago we were just talking about creating a bigger space for kids, and we were talking about what it would look like if we made that space, and that families would come and that there would be space for them to come into. And it's happening. And we're so excited for that, but it's also creating a new problem, if you want to call it that. We are starting to see kids graduate out of Kids Central, and they need another space. So I wanted to share with you a story of what God has been at work with over the last 2 decades. About 22 years ago, when Pastor Dan was 9 years old as the youth pastor at Grace Assembly, I remember I stepped foot into the youth group that he was a pastor at. And it wasn't because of Pastor Dan, although I do love Pastor Dan. I had a love interest at the time, and I wanted to see this girl as much as I could. Her name happens to be Emily Glisson, so I won. But as a 14-year-old kid, I was stepping foot into a new building, and I remember feeling immediately attracted to the space that I was walking into, and it was for a few reasons. Number one, there were couches instead of chairs, and I remember thinking, wow, if I could go to church and sit in a couch after being at school all day long at a desk, I like this. There was not bright lighting. It wasn't like sitting in a science lab at school. It was like a living room. And I remember there were people all around the walls of the room that really made an impact in my life. I didn't know it at the time, but there were volunteers like we have for our teenagers. We have a whole group and a whole team of people that every week they come and they share their life with our teenagers. And that was something that, as I look back on, I think was a huge impact, so big that I think if it weren't a part of my life, I don't know that I'd be here today. And the reason I say that is I have 3 other siblings that didn't have that experience. I grew up in a church that didn't have a large youth group, and it wasn't a church that was really fun to be at as a teenager. And I remember with the space that I walked into, mixed with young adults, people that were more experienced that I looked up to, and being able to be in a place that I could spend time with them, that was so formative in my spiritual life that I wholeheartedly believe God used that youth ministry to help me shape my own faith. I look at my siblings, and unfortunately, they're not following Christ right now, and I'm hopeful and prayerful that this space that we're talking about will be exactly what it was for me as a teenager. And Pastor Jonathan's going to come in just a moment. He's going to share what it looks like practically, what we're planning up. I did want to share one thing, and nobody told me to share this, and I think it's important. When I heard about this space, I immediately thought about the price tag. And I immediately thought, this sounds kind of expensive. And then as I reflected further, and I was talking to my wife about it, we were kind of talking through some of the other projects that we're aware of with other friends that we have that are pastors at other churches. And it really it welled up thankfulness in my heart for Pastor Jonathan. And he's not the only one that was a part of that project, but there's something that you should know about him. He has a way of finding a way to make a beautiful space on the least amount of money. This project that we have with our kids' space, we've been living in it for, I think, like 7 years, which is crazy that it, has it been that long? You can fact check me. 6 years, okay, 6 years, coming up on 7. The attention to detail that is in this space we haven't found anything that's not working, aside from the roof. It's got a little leak, but that's warranted. John found a roofer that has a warranty. And I want to encourage you, as you're listening to this detail that he's going to give us of what it looks like, I want you to think about a teenager like me walking into those doors, feeling the love of adults that they wouldn't have felt, and what that looks like as they go off. In that youth ministry, I remember feeling God's calling on my life to share his good news with other people, to be a part of the church in a way that was more than just sitting in the pews. And I remember other stories like it. There's so many people that came from that youth group that are now serving elsewhere, and there's so many kids that are learning about who God is because of the parents meeting Jesus in that youth group. And we're excited at what that could look like here at North Central, carrying on a legacy and an investment in youth ministry. North Central has traditionally had a youth ministry that's thriving and is something that's important to us. And now we're going to look to create a space that matches that same effort. So John's going to fill us in on what that looks like.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Boy, I remember back in 2015 when we were just starting plans to build that space, and man, we weren't sure then, how are we going to get this done? We had big vision for it. We knew that if we built it, they would come, kind of that field of dreams thing, right? So we started that project in 2018, opened it in 2019, and it's been incredible what God has done. Like Christian said, 30% of our congregation is over there, 0 to 12 years old. It's unbelievable. Close to 100 kids. And I was talking to Julian this morning. He was saying that there's probably on a Wednesday night in youth group, there's probably 15 to 20. So think about that. Like, do the math, right? There's a tidal wave of kids, students who are coming and going to be graduating into YoungNC. So we want to be ready for that. We want to prepare for that. So we've been planning, working hard to kind of come up with a design for a new space that I want to share with you very quickly, just run through a few slides. Before I do, I just want to give you a little bit of background. I met with the team, and we started to talk about like what's going to inform the design, right? Because you need to know, you need to have some vision. It can't just be willy-nilly, like throw things together. Like, what's going to inform the design? And one of the things that they had talked about was they really liked the concept of honeybees and how honeybees like live in community, work in community for a bigger goal, a bigger purpose. And so we kind of took that little nugget of an idea, sat down with a designer, and it started to inform what we were about to design. And she kind of put together a couple of paragraphs. I'm just going to read them to you very quickly, but this is how she was thinking about the space when she came up with the design. But listen to this. North Central Church has planted a vivid picture of how the focused activity of honeybees mirrors the purposeful living that comes from gospel transformation. Just as each bee contributes to the health and flourishing of the hive, individuals transformed by the gospel find their purpose in contributing to something larger than themselves, the kingdom of God. From a design perspective, the hexagonal honeycomb is a marvel of engineering, efficient, strong, and aesthetically pleasing. Additionally, the hive is a highly organized and efficient space, housing zones and smart storage solutions. Most of all, the hive is a communal space where each bee has a role. The design will draw deeply from the inspiration of honeybees, creating a welcoming, safe, modern, youthful, comfortable, functional, and accessible space for the youth community of North Central Church. I love that. I love that summary. I think it's so meaningful. So let's take a look real quick up at the screen, and I'll kind of I know this is a little bit small here, but I'll just walk you through it quickly. Right now, you see those stairs kind of on the left-hand side, maybe a quarter of the way down? That's the current staircase that kind of comes down. Now, currently, you walk down there, and you've got the kitchen on your left, then you have a bunch of rooms to your right. This really changes the whole design of that lower level. So we've got basically one big open space that'll be used in several different ways. So let's go to the next slide quick. So we kind of wanted to create a bit of an impact when you first walk in, like a bit of we'll call it a portal. So when you first come down the stairs, you've got this really cool graphic on the wall there with the honeybee. You've got the neon, the hive. You've got that honeycomb style lighting up there. And then you see those sort of circular things. That was kind of an idea, maybe with some like PVC plastic piping or something. But actually, we have Matt Last here, who owns Northeast Services, and those guys are actually going to build for us wooden, like honeycomb style design there. So it won't be circular, it'll actually be hexagonal in that little portal as you kind of go into the space. So love that idea. All right, let's go to the next one. Of course it needs a ping pong table, right? It's like, what do you guys need? A ping pong table for sure. And then you've got, again, that design theme continuing up on that ceiling with the hexagonal like ceiling treatment there, kind of a gaming area, some storage solutions there. Let's go to the next one. This is kind of a view towards the back staircase that you see there in sort of in yellow. These colors aren't exactly a great representation either. They're a little bit different than what they'll be a little cooler, not quite so warm. But another, a couple of TVs there, some sort of a little bit more loungy space. Let's go to the next one. And then we've got like a little bit of a stage, right, for kind of a teaching area, a bigger screen for movies and videos and stuff like that. Again, that really cool ceiling treatment throughout. And then also, like, you'll see the seating there. Right now, we've got just a basic empty room that the students meet in, and it's kind of classroom style. They just, set chairs up, and it's not great. It's not great at all. This is much more comfortable, loungy, kind of a space for them to be comfortable in and sort of relax in. So different sort of seating solutions there. Let's go to the next one. Okay, that's looking back towards the main staircase where you see those circles. And then that room where it says, see where it says prayers? That's probably going to be a window, actually, because on the other side of that will be a meeting space for our leaders. Our youth group leaders, YoungNC leaders. Let's go to the next one. Okay, that's the inside of that space, that meeting space for our leadership team. Kind of just a basic room for those guys to meet beforehand and after. Let's go to the next one. Okay, huge need in our church family. Now this benefits all of us. A new kitchen. Really, really needed. So a couple different ideas there just in terms of colors that we could be looking at. But a huge need. And I'll say this too, we're hopeful that we can do a lot of this project on our own. We want to be really resourceful, good stewards of what God's given us. We've got people in our church family who have already approached me, an electrical company, right? We'll do it. We'll give us the task. We'll take it on. We've got Northeast Systems, like I said, who's going to provide millwork and a lot of the carpentry. We've got a painting company that has volunteered services. So we're already kind of gathering some momentum in terms of who's going to be doing the work. I also want to set up like a couple of volunteer Saturdays where we can get a group of people together, do some demolition, really cut down on a lot of the bigger costs. We'll need people towards the end of the project, too, to sort of stage it, put furniture in, kind of all the finishing touches. So it's a huge undertaking. But, man, if we look back at our history and the faithfulness of God and sort of the vision that he's given us for growth as a church family, he has been so faithful to complete what he has asked us to do. And this project's no different. And we're just super excited about it. We're going to actually fund a large portion of it as well through Kingdom Builders. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. But we're just so excited. So what I'm asking, too, is that we're just prayerful about it. We're prayerful about the project, what your involvement might be, whether it's time, volunteer time, whether it's a talent that you have, or whether it's treasure, whether it's just donating and saying, I'd love to help fund this project and invest in the next generation. So we're excited about it. Thanks for listening.